She was supposed to be in Colorado. Instead, I saw her in Chicago. Through the glass of a hotel lobby window I wasn't supposed to walk past. She didn't see me. She was too busy laughing. There was a man across from her, black jacket, leaning in close. He touched her fingers like it was the most natural thing in the world, like they'd done it 1,000 times. She sipped from a white porcelain cup and said something that made him smile. Not a small smile. One of those slow sinking smiles that land in your stomach and stay there for days. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. The city kept spinning while I stood there. Outside the glass, inside the ache. The funny part? I had canceled my trip that morning. Food poisoning, I told my boss. Truth was, I'd had a nightmare about her. Something stupid. I just wanted to be home when she got back from her photography retreat. She said she'd be in Glenwood Springs that night, riding a vintage train and journaling. I was on my way to get groceries when I saw her through the hotel window. She wasn't alone, and she wasn't journaling. 5 hours later, she sent me a photo. Smiling, train window in the background, a cup of tea. Caption, missing you. Wish you were here. But the lighting didn't match, the shadows were wrong. I don't know how I noticed. Maybe the universe gives you eagle eyes right before your heart breaks. But the sunlight was too sharp for a train. It looked more like a hotel atrium. I didn't reply. I just stared at the photo, then back at the hotel's booking site. She'd reserved a room for 2, under her maiden name, and that was the beginning of the end. Or maybe it wasn't the beginning. Maybe it started years ago. Maybe it started with silence I ignored, and goodnight kisses that stopped landing. But standing there in that street, looking through that window, all I could think was, that's not the face she makes when she's with me. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Not right away. You'd think that's what I would have done, right? Storm into the hotel, demand answers, start yelling like some movie husband with righteous fury and a shredded heart. But I didn't. I just walked away. That's the part that still gets to me. I walked away. I got in my car, parked 2 blocks down on a meter about to expire, and sat in the driver's seat with my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I stared out the windshield like I was watching the ending of someone else's life. The scene played on loop behind my eyes. Her smile, his touch, the steam from the cup rising between them like fog over something rotten. The world didn't stop, though. Cars kept honking, a bus rolled past. Someone was yelling into a phone on the sidewalk, and I just sat there, trying to convince myself it didn't mean what I knew it meant. An hour later, she texted again. You'd love this view. It's like a painting. I didn't answer. Instead, I opened the photo again, zoomed in, enhancing shadows, tilting my screen. And there it was, clearer than before. In the window beside her, a reflection, a man's arm, a watch on his wrist, her hair falling against his shoulder. But here's the part that made my stomach turn. Her face in the reflection. It didn't match her expression in the foreground. It was the same woman, same jawline, same eyes. But in the reflection, she wasn't smiling. She looked dead serious, almost afraid. I closed my phone, locked it, then unlocked it again because my brain wouldn't let it go. I compared the faces side by side, like some obsessed forensic analyst on a crime show. The smile didn't reach her eyes. It never had. Not in the last few photos she'd sent me over the past 6 months. They were always beautiful, technically. She was photogenic, always had been, but flat. Empty. Like she was performing someone else's version of intimacy. I drove back home. I opened our front door and just stood in the hallway for a while. Everything was quiet. Too quiet. Her mug was still in the sink from the morning she left. Lipstick smudged around the rim like a goodbye I didn't recognize. Then I saw something that didn't belong. A pair of socks on the floor by the couch. Men's socks, not mine. I picked them up slowly as if they'd explode. One had a tear in the heel, black cotton, smelled faintly of cologne, not mine either, something citrusy, sharp. I swear I stood there for a full 10 minutes, holding that stupid sock like it was evidence in a trial where I didn't even know the charges yet. That night, I didn't sleep. I laid in our bed, on her side, smelling the pillow she had used. There was a strand of hair curled into the fabric, and for the first time in a long time, I cried. Not the cinematic kind. Not the dramatic, manly single tear. Number? The kind where your whole face folds and your lungs forget how to behave. Quiet, wet, embarrassed sobbing in a dark room where no one is watching. And that makes it worse somehow. In the morning, she called me. My hand hovered over the accept button. Then it rang out. She tried again. I let it ring. Then came the voicemail. Her voice was soft, but rushed. "Hey, just wanted to check in. I feel like you've been distant. Hope everything's okay. I'll be back late tomorrow. I love you." No mention of the hotel. No mention of Chicago. No mention of the man. And I just kept listening to that message over and over until her voice didn't sound like hers anymore. By the next morning, I had already talked myself out of everything. That's what I do. I gaslight myself better than anyone else ever could. Maybe those socks were old. Maybe she wore men's cologne for the day. Maybe, God help me, she took that photo on a different train. It could happen. Maybe there was a mirror and the reflection was hers from another angle, right? Number. But I tried. I even Googled train interiors that matched her photo. I looked through Amtrak blog posts and railfan forums like some amateur investigator, pausing YouTube videos at full screen to match windows and upholstery. Then something strange happened. Around 11 a.m., I heard a knock. Not the doorbell. A knock. 3 soft raps like whoever it was didn't want to wake a baby. I opened the door and blinked in the sunlight. A delivery guy in a navy blue vest stood there holding a brown canvas duffel bag. No box, no address label. Just a tag with MIRA scribbled in green ink. "Found this in the parking lot behind Palmer Street Station," the guy said. "Had your address on a luggage tag inside. Figured it belonged to someone here." I didn't say anything. Just nodded and took the bag. It was hers. I recognized the strap. She'd had it since college. The kind with the frayed zipper and a coffee stain near the side pocket from a trip to Vancouver in 2015. She never traveled without it. So why wasn't it with her? I set the bag on the kitchen table and stared at it like it might bite me. Then, slowly, I unzipped it. Inside were the usual things. A notebook, sunglasses, a power bank, a broken mechanical pencil. I unfolded a flannel shirt that smelled like rain. Beneath it was a man's t-shirt, size large, rolled tightly and stuffed into the corner. Still not mine. And then I found something I couldn't explain. A receipt from a liquor store on Dearborn Street, time-stamped 2 nights ago. While she was supposedly riding a train through Colorado. 2 bottles of red wine, a sleeve of disposable shot cups, and a small box of condoms. I felt like the floor tilted under me. I rechecked the date 3 times. The clerk's name was on the bottom, R.A.Y. I wanted to call the store. I almost did. My hand hovered over the number. But what was I going to say? Hey, did a beautiful woman with a double life and an allergy to the truth buy wine and protection at your counter? I dropped the receipt back in the bag and zipped it closed. I told myself I wouldn't touch her notebook, that some lines shouldn't be crossed, no matter what. But after pacing for a full hour, I caved. The first few pages were normal. Sketch outlines of buildings, mood board photos glued beside phrases like mid-century warmth and eco-minimalism. Then, halfway through, I turned a page and stopped. In the center was a single sentence. There is no version of this where he doesn't find out. No name, no context. Just that. Written in perfect cursive. I closed the notebook and sat back, trying to breathe through the rising panic. I looked around the house like it might help me make sense of what was happening. Everything looked the same. The framed photos on the hallway wall, the pair of slippers by the couch, the note she'd left on the fridge about picking up oat milk. It all looked the same, but now I saw it like I'd never seen it before. Every detail felt staged, like someone had carefully recreated our life down to the exact angle of the pillows, the playlists on Spotify, the grocery list pinned with a cactus magnet. All of it felt performed. Like I was the last one in the audience and the actors had already left the stage. And I still hadn't told her I was home. I told myself I wouldn't call her. That was my one rule. I needed time to think, to breathe, to sit with the poison I'd swallowed and decide if I could live with it or not. But rules only work when you're not sitting alone in a house full of echoes, trying to convince yourself that the woman you love didn't just vanish behind your back and leave you breadcrumbs dipped in lies. It was around 2:30 a.m. when I finally did it. I'd been lying in bed, staring at the ceiling fan, doing slow rotations like it was measuring time, and suddenly I couldn't take it anymore. I rolled over, unlocked my phone, and dialed. The first time, it rang 4 times and went to voicemail. Her voice chirped through the speaker, fake happy. "Hey, it's Mira. I probably have no signal or I'm covered in paint or coffee. Leave it here." I didn't. I just hung up and stared at the screen. But then, and I swear this is true, her name started blinking. She was calling me back. I sat bolt upright, heart slamming into my ribs. I answered immediately. "Hello?" But it wasn't her. It was a man. Hello?" he said, confused. Not aggressive, not like someone who got caught, just confused, like he genuinely didn't know who I was. I didn't respond at first. I just listened to his voice, his breathing, the clink of something in the background. A glass, a bottle. He spoke again. "Hey, sorry. This phone rang. I thought it was mine. Who's this?" I froze. My mouth opened, but no words came out. Because I didn't know what to say. I didn't even know who I was anymore. "Where's Mira?" I finally asked. He paused. Too long. Then, she's in the shower." The words hit like a slap. She was with him. Now, at that moment. "Who are you?" I asked. But I didn't say it like a question. It came out like a threat. He didn't answer. Just sighed. "Look, man, I think you got the wrong idea." "No," I said. "I think I finally got the right one." Then he hung up. Just like that. Call ended. I sat there in the dark, phone still pressed to my ear, listening to the silence like it might confess something if I waited long enough. My fingers went numb. My head buzzed with static. I looked around the room like it belonged to someone else. Like I was squatting in the ruins of a life I had rented but never really owned. I couldn't sleep after that. I stayed up scrolling through old photos of us. From our trip to Iceland, her in that yellow jacket she used to love. Me with that ridiculous knit hat she said made me look like a fisherman. We looked so happy. But now I studied those pictures like crime scene evidence. Her hand on my chest, her smile tilted just so. Was that real? Or had she always been like this? And then I found it. A detail I had never noticed before. In almost every photo from the past year, she was holding her phone, even in moments where no one should be. Middle of a hike, a beach at sunset, cooking dinner, always clutching it like a lifeline. Not to me, to someone else. It was like peeling wallpaper off a wall and finding a hidden door behind it. And now, I couldn't stop peeling. The next day I made the call I never thought I'd make. To her sister. I hadn't spoken to Mira's sister in almost 2 years. Not since the fallout. They'd had some argument. Something about money or loyalty, or an accidental leak to their mother about Mira's short-lived Vegas elopement before me. Mira was always vague about it, just said, "We don't talk anymore," and left it at that. I never pushed because Mira had a way of making any curiosity feel like trespassing. But now, standing in my kitchen with her half-packed duffel bag on the table and the sound of a stranger's voice still echoing in my head, I scrolled through my contacts until I found the name. Natalie, don't. That's how Mira had saved her in my phone, in all caps. And yes, Mira had set up most of my contacts herself, back when we were still in that let me organize your life phase of marriage. She used to grab my phone and say, "God, your contact list is medieval. Let me fix it." I let her. I thought it was cute. I tapped the number. It rang twice. Then she picked up. "Elliot?" Her voice was dry, wary, defensive. I expected coldness. What I didn't expect was that she still had my number saved. "Hi, Nat," I said, my voice shaking more than I wanted it to. "I know it's weird hearing from me, but I need to ask you something about Mira." Silence. Then a long sigh, like she had just sat down in the middle of a battlefield. "Is she okay?" "She's fine," I said quickly. I don't know. She told me she was on a train in Colorado, but I saw her in Chicago with someone." Another pause, the kind that comes before a confession. Or an explosion. When she finally spoke, her voice was lower, more careful. "I thought you knew." I felt a crack split down the middle of my spine. "Knew what?" "About the apartment," she said. "What apartment?" "The one she's had in Chicago, since late 2022, I think. She said it was for creative retreats. I figured you were okay with it. She made it sound like you two had some arrangement." I nearly dropped the phone. There was no apartment. We had no arrangement. There were no creative retreats. I thought she stayed in hotels for work. That's what she always said. She even brought me back soaps from boutique places I'd never heard of. You're saying she's had an apartment in Chicago for 2 years? I asked, gripping the countertop like the room might fall sideways. Yes, Natalie said. It's under her old LLC name, Mira Sloan Studios. I didn't want to get involved, Elliot, but I also didn't want to lie anymore. You seem kind. You always were. I didn't respond. I couldn't. My brain was full of broken glass. And the guy, she continued, the one you saw. Was he tall, dark hair, a chipped front tooth? My heart dropped. Yes, that's Bennett, she said. She was with him before you. On and off. It was chaotic. He wasn't good to her. She used to say he haunted her. Then why would she be with him now? Another long pause. I don't think she knows how to not be haunted, Natalie said softly. I thanked her, barely remembering what words I used. I hung up and stood in the silence of my kitchen, surrounded by the hum of appliances and the slow collapse of everything I believed about my marriage. Mira had a second life, an apartment, a man with a chipped tooth who haunted her. And I'd been sleeping in our bed alone, thinking she was chasing sunsets on a train. The rage didn't come, not yet. Just this weird, hollow numbness, like someone had scooped me out and left my body standing on autopilot. I walked to her side of the closet, opened a drawer. Her scarves were still there, folded perfectly. All of them except one. The gray one with the mustard trim. The one she always wore when she traveled. I walked back to the duffel bag and opened it again. The scarf was inside, but it was torn, clean down the middle, like someone had grabbed it in a moment of panic and pulled. And suddenly, something occurred to me. Something so obvious I hated myself for missing it. That man, the one who answered her phone, he didn't just accidentally pick up. He didn't call me back by mistake. He wanted me to know. I found the address in her bag. Tucked behind the liquor store receipt was a second slip of paper, folded twice over and worn at the edges like it had been opened and closed 100 times. On it, scribbled in Mira's looping handwriting, was an address in Logan Square, Chicago. No label, no context. Just a number, a street, and a zip code. That was all I needed. I didn't even pack. I just got in the car the next morning, hands still trembling, threw a hoodie over yesterday's shirt, and drove. 8 hours. Barely stopped. Somewhere around the Iowa border, I caught myself repeating her name under my breath like a broken incantation. Mira, Mira, Mira. Like maybe if I said it enough, she'd make sense again. But she didn't. By the time I reached the building, it was past 9 p.m. The sun was gone, but the street was still glowing. Warm, yellow lamps casting long shadows onto cracked sidewalks and rows of brownstones. The building was a narrow, red brick 3-flat with ivy crawling up the side. The buzzer panel didn't have names, just numbered buttons. Hers wasn't labeled. Of course it wasn't. I stood there for a full minute, my finger hovering. Then I pushed 3B. Nothing. I waited, listening for footsteps, voices, movement. But all I heard was a dog barking in the distance and the distant hum of a train rolling through the city. Then the door buzzed. I don't know who let me in. The hallway smelled like old plaster and lavender air freshener. 3rd floor. Wooden steps. Every creak under my feet felt like a betrayal announcing my arrival. I found the door. 3B, I knocked once. No answer. I knocked again. Then I tried the knob. It was unlocked. I didn't want to step inside. I wanted the floor to open beneath me. I wanted the universe to intervene. Tell me I was wrong, that this wasn't her place, that this was someone else's twisted story. But I stepped in anyway. The apartment was curated, not lived in, not messy, not cozy. It looked like a showroom, like something she'd build for a client. Sleek furniture, dried eucalyptus in vases, soft jazz playing low from a speaker I couldn't see. Everything had that museum stillness. Beautiful, but dead. There were photos on the wall, but none of us. None of me. Just black and white shots of strangers. A woman on a rooftop, a man smoking beside a payphone, a child holding a balloon next to a train car. Then I saw the coat, hanging on the back of a kitchen chair. Mira's. I recognized the stitching, the tiny hidden embroidery near the cuff, a detail only she would think to hide. She'd been here, recently. I walked to the bedroom. The door was ajar. Inside, an unmade bed, 2 pillows, clothes draped over a chair, a phone charger still plugged in on the nightstand, a bottle of her favorite face serum on the dresser. The one I bought her for our anniversary last year. The one she told me she'd lost. And there, on the vanity, was a photo. Framed. Not one of her and Bennett, one of just Bennett, shirtless, in bed, sleeping. It was shot in soft light, clearly taken by someone who loved him, or thought they did. Suddenly I felt nauseous. The air was thick, too still. I backed out of the room, stumbled toward the door. But then something caught my eye near the hallway closet. A shoebox, no lid. Half pulled from the shelf like it had been searched recently. I reached up, pulled it down. Inside were letters. Not emails, not texts, handwritten letters, tied together with red string. The first one on top was dated almost 4 years ago, before she and I bought the house, before we started trying for kids, before she ever mentioned Colorado or train trips or creative retreats. The first line, "I don't know how long I can keep up this version of me." I sat down on the floor, right there in her hallway, and read. The letters weren't just love notes. They were confessions, fragmented pieces of Mira I'd never seen. She talked about me, described our life as a slow breath she was learning to hold. She described him as gravity, and me as weather. She said she tried to quit him 4 times, but always came back. That he was poison in the water, that I was too good, that I deserved someone better, but she'd never let me go because I made her feel safe. She called me her silence. I don't remember driving home. I only remember the sound of the red string snapping between my fingers and the letters falling all around me like ash. When I got home from Chicago, I didn't sleep for nearly 30 hours. I couldn't. I just wandered the house like a ghost, straightening things that didn't need straightening, staring too long at furniture we picked out together, running my hand across surfaces as if some invisible residue might tell me what else she'd hidden. The air in our house had changed. I swear it. It felt heavier now, like every molecule was laced with something sour and bitter and quietly radioactive. She texted the next morning, said her train was delayed because of some landslide near the mountains. She added a sad face emoji, like we were teenagers again, and I hadn't just stood in her secret apartment the night before, holding the red string that used to keep her lies in place. I didn't respond. I waited. And then I made coffee. That's how the idea came to me, the smallest thing. She always made coffee first thing when she got home from a trip. Said it reset her system. It didn't matter what time she walked in, 9 a.m. or 11 p.m. The moment her suitcase hit the hardwood, she went straight for the kettle. Ritual, predictable. So I decided that's where I'd plant the bait. I took one of the letters from the shoebox, not the most recent, not the most damaging, one of the early ones. The ones she wrote before she learned how to filter her guilt, back when she still tried to make sense of what she was doing. I folded it neatly, carefully, and slipped it into the bag of coffee beans. I didn't bury it deep. Just under the first scoop. She'd see it. She'd have to. The red string was still wrapped around it, her handwriting unmistakable. The only question was, would she admit it? She came home at 6:48 p.m. I watched her from the window as she pulled into the driveway. She was wearing the scarf again, the one I found torn in her bag, now repaired with a thin line of hand stitching along the seam. She looked tired. Or maybe that was just what I wanted to believe. I didn't rush to greet her, just sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open and a neutral expression rehearsed in my head. She walked in like nothing had happened, called out, "Hey, babe!" and kissed the top of my head like she was still entitled to that intimacy. I flinched, almost imperceptibly. She didn't notice, or pretended not to. "How was the trip?" I asked, keeping my tone even. "Exhausting," she said, dropping her purse by the stairs. "But good. The train views were unreal this time. I got some photos I think might actually make it into that Sierra magazine spread." She was already moving toward the kitchen counter, already reaching for the kettle. My heart started pounding. I sipped water to hide it, watched her from the corner of my eye. She opened the cabinet, pulled out the bag of beans, sliced it open, paused, and there it was. The first flicker. Her hand froze for a beat too long. She reached in slowly, fingers brushing something that didn't belong. Her eyes shifted, not at me, but at the note now visible between the beans. She didn't pull it out immediately. She just stood there, staring into the bag like it had started whispering to her. When she did finally take it out, she unfolded it slowly. Read the first few lines, then the next. I didn't speak. She didn't either. Not for at least 15 seconds. Then she folded it again, tighter than it had been before, and slid it into the pocket of her jeans. I waited. She poured water into the kettle, pressed the switch, turned to me. "What's that look for?" she said, half smiling. "You look like you're about to interrogate me." I tilted my head calmly. "Should I be?" She shrugged. "Depends. What would I be on trial for?" "The coffee," I said. "Bad roast." She laughed, too loudly, too quickly. "Well, you bought it." I didn't answer, just stood up, kissed her on the cheek, and walked out of the kitchen. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw every letter I had in her face and demand answers, demand apologies, demand the woman I married to reappear and explain where the imposter came from. But I didn't, because her silence said more than any confession ever could. And now I knew the most important thing. She wasn't going to tell me the truth, because she still didn't know how much I already knew. The next morning, she was gone before I woke up. No note, no coffee left brewing, just the faint scent of her lavender serum in the bathroom and a dent in the pillow next to mine that felt colder than usual. I sat on the edge of the bed for a while, the way people sit in churches long after the sermon ends, not waiting for an answer, just hoping for the silence to mean something. For the next 2 days, we moved around each other like strangers in an airport, short sentences, performative gestures, a dinner reheated and eaten without eye contact. She didn't mention the letter, I didn't bring it up, and still, I watched her, not like a husband, but like a man watching the last flickers of a candle he didn't even light. And then, one evening, as the sun was bleeding across the kitchen tiles, I did something unexpected. I forgave her, not out loud, not with a grand speech or trembling voice. I just felt something inside me. Let go. The knot in my chest loosened, the weight behind my eyes lifted. It was quiet, unremarkable, like finally exhaling after holding your breath for too long. Because the truth is, she'd been fading for years, not just from me, from herself. The Mira I fell in love with, the one who sketched rooftops and cried at terrible movies and talked to stray cats like they were old friends. She'd been disappearing 1 inch at a time. I just hadn't wanted to see it. I held on to the idea of her tighter than I ever held her hand. That night, I packed 1 suitcase. Just clothes, no keepsakes, no letters, not even the coffee beans. She came home late, found me sitting by the door with my jacket zipped and car keys in my hand. She didn't ask where I was going. I think she already knew. I stood up, looked at her, really looked at her, and said, "I loved you more than I've ever loved anything. But I think I stopped loving this version of us a long time ago." She didn't cry, she just nodded, then stepped forward and hugged me, tighter than I expected, and whispered, "I'm sorry." I think she meant it. I drove away that night. No GPS. Just the open road, some jazz on the radio, and a calm I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't cinematic, but it was real. 6 months later, I moved into a small apartment downtown. I started writing again. Nothing serious, just short stories, reflections, little things that made me feel human. I joined a group that met on Sundays at a bookstore cafe. They were awkward and brilliant and kind in that strange, unpolished way that felt safe. There's a woman there, Nora. She laughs with her whole face, loves rainy days, walks like she's never in a rush. We talk after meetings. Not about broken marriages or betrayal or trauma. We talk about music, about books, about what we've survived. I don't know what we are yet, but I know what we're not. We're not lying, and that's enough. That's everything.